right of the people, baby.
To truly choose to love is heroic.
Everything would be all right if everything was put back in the hands of the people. And we're going to have to put it back in the hands of the people.
It takes the willingness to stand by and do what has to be done when it has to be done.
What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the Off the Shelf Book Club. My name is Jermaine.
My name is Jessalin.
We're really excited to get into this next episode with you. This is going to be Chapter 6 of Unbuild Walls by Silky Shah, Why Immigration Justice Needs Abolition. This is the second to last chapter of the book, so we will be getting, this is our second to last episode of us discussing the chapters. This next episode, we will, that will be our last episode, and then we have some interesting and special new content coming for you soon, and we're really excited to get into that. And so we're going to also be introducing our next book.
Our new book that we're going to be reading after this is We Do This Till We Free Us by Mariame Kaba. This is another book that you can find on the Haymarket website. Well, we will get some more resources for you to find this book in other places. But this book is about abolition and abolitionist organizing, and Mariame Kaba's work and what she has done so far and her thought process around that. And it's a really good book to be able to introduce abolition to you in a way that, like, if you've already thought about it, if you want to get to know it a little bit better, she does a good job at talking about it and reflects on the work that she's done. So, yeah.
And we're really excited to get into that with you. We're going to have some resources down below to check that out. You can get that. You can also buy the book on haymarketbooks.org. And we're really excited to get into the next book. That will be in the next upcoming few weeks. We want to give you time to also be able to get a hold of the book. And before we get into starting our discussion on Chapter 6, we want to do our land acknowledgement like always. The Off the Shelf Book Club wants to offer our utmost respect to those who came before us on this land. It is important that we protect and acknowledge the history of the indigenous people of America. Minnesota Makoche, which means the land of the water that reflects the sky, is the homeland of the Dakota and Anishinaabe people. Minnesota in its history has taken part in the genocide of Native people and multiple treaties that has stripped them from their homelands. Where Off the Shelf Book Club resides is home of the Metawakaton. I'm going to cut this.
Metawakaton.
Oh, I said it right. I guess I did. Okay. Where Off the Shelf Book Club resides is home of the Metawakaton people, which means dwellers of the Spirit Lake. Off the Shelf Book Club will do whatever we can to honor the Native people and their land and do what we can to aid in the land back movement. All right. So getting into this episode, what are your thoughts about this chapter? Oh, sorry. Before we get into the chapter, we want to remind you of our questions for Chapter 6. The first one is, how can we support and create local leadership to stand against detention?
How can we find a solution to the economic challenge in abolition?
And what can we do to keep momentum going when facing major losses? So yeah, getting into this chapter, what are you thinking? What were your thoughts?
I think that this chapter, in a ways, is a good wrap up of kind of like the history up until now and the things that both DHS and ICE have done to maneuver themselves, right, with detention centers, but also like it really hounds and focuses on, what people and organizations have done to do their part in abolishing these detention centers where they are, and focusing in on different parts of the country and what they've done to do that. That way it almost gives us, right, like a map. Where have people succeeded? Where have people not succeeded?
Yeah.
What were those reasons for that? And that was a big part of this chapter that I thought was helpful.
I really liked that part. It was like a good, healthy way of like being able to be critical of some of the movements, as well as see where we can shine, see what we can do to help when we do mess up, when we do have our collides within our own organizations. Our beliefs may not be 100% aligned. So how do we maneuver that? I feel like she did a really good job of that. It's almost like a little bit of a handbook. You know what I mean? Of like, here, these are examples of these issues that we've had or these successes that we've had. This is how we did it. This is all it took. And also showing like the reality of how we got there. And clearly it wasn't like, a full extensive history, but I like how each situation was able to touch on a lot of different things. She was able to get a lot into that chapter.
Yeah. I think that's the important part of looking at previous leadership in these cases. Like, what have they done and what has worked, what has not? What can we continue to do versus what things we might need to pivot based on who and what we're up against.
Yeah. And my biggest lesson, though, from this chapter is that it really takes all different types of people to make this change happen. Like, it takes all different types of positions, all different types of skills, talents. We really need to work on coalition as a people, because there's so many different ways to fight back. It's going to take everyone to really undo all these institutions that are meant to do these harmful things. They're also meant to try and push us away and make us feel like we can't fight back, that we can't make change. But it's clear throughout this whole chapter that is possible. But it takes a lot of hard work. It takes a lot of people that decide to stand up. It takes a lot of people to say no more. And that's really key to what we need to do looking forward. We need this type of coalition. We need this organization. We do need a similar goal. We need to work on our alliance and being aligned morally and spreading the word, spreading the knowledge. That's the first part. We have to spread this education, because in my personal experience, abolition is more of a new subject in my life. Maybe within the 5 years, I've actually went that far to actually be like, I think this is the option. I think this is the option we gotta go. I started to develop that way of thinking, and I didn't even really, the year before, I really didn't even realize that was a thing. I thought it was such a wild idea, and we have to also leave room for this. We have to leave room for true education of this. We all need to learn.
Yeah. I think that there's a space too, right? Because time and time again, right, whether it's talking about the East Coast, West Coast, the Midwest, what we see is that there are multiple different organizations that have to work together, in addition to your lawyers and attorneys and whatnot, right? There are a lot of people that are coming together, right, and aiding and trying to keep contracts from renewing, to, close down different county jails and detention centers and things of that nature. But that's also not something that's new either. And I think we tend to forget, because how history is taught here is very individualistic.
Yeah.
You think about history, right? A person that single-handedly moved the civil rights movement, right, is Martin Luther King, if you go back to your history classes, and that's far from the truth.
Right.
Martin Luther King was a very, in reality, right, was a very small, he did very small things because there were so many other people that were aiding in that movement.
Yeah, and it's like, it takes all those small things, you know what I mean? And yeah, there are that's such a perfect point, because I was thinking that throughout this whole chapter, when I was reading it, I was really connecting it to the civil rights movement, because there's a lot of similarities within it. And where there's a sense of fighting for humanity, and we all have to do little by little things. Like, not everybody is going to be able to do that march. You know, not everybody has the able body to do that. Not everybody is going to be able to actually afford to boycott. Like, that's just a reality. But there's things that we have to also be able to be like, okay, I can't do it here. This is where I'm doing it. We have to be building off of each other. And then if we're building off of each other, it also makes it easier for everybody to take part in it in some way, shape, or form, creating new avenues to do it.
Right.
Because that's what it took. Sorry.
Yeah. No, you're fine. In some cases, right, like you've seen in the book, right, disagreements happen. Disagreements happen all the time. You're not going to agree with each other, whether you're talking about closing the Hudson County Jail, and there being disagreements about it, because it allowed people to be more accessible to migrants to get them the help that they need. They didn't necessarily want to close it down, but the reality is that abolition needs it to close down. They will get help still, right? But the reality is that those conditions are too horrible to keep it up. And it makes me think of, for example, Ella Baker. Ella Baker was a big part of our civil rights movement, and she usually goes untalked about in a lot of ways, right? But she was with the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. She left because she ain't like some of the stuff that they was doing, or lack thereof in a lot of ways. You want to know who else was part of there? Martin Luther King.
Yeah.
And some other people, and I can't remember there are others too that I just am blanking on, but she felt like they was not doing enough, and so she helped create SNCC, right, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, with students who she thought who could really make some change. There were disagreements left and right. There were disagreements in the creation of the Freedom Summer, right, of 64 in Mississippi, that was created by, all of them involved, or lack thereof, right? And so sometimes that happens, and sometimes we get losses from that. And sometimes, right, we're able to conversate, get to a middle ground, right, and push for stuff, and collectively come together, like you said.
Exactly. And a lot of the times too is that eventually a side will eventually see it. Like, a lot of people, the misconception of Martin Luther King's beliefs are because they are usually, they let people cherry pick on what they want Martin Luther King to be seen as. But Martin Luther King was also a man of change within himself, because towards the end of his life, he also understood the need for violence, why violence happens.
Mm-hmm.
And what we're always taught is that he was a very non-violent man. And yes, he did want to turn the other cheek, but he also did understand. And that's not taught. As well as the realizations that what he was like talking about, what his dream was, might have not actually been what his exact dream that he said wasn't exactly what we needed. He ended up realizing that, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's not like there wasn't genuine need that we needed to hear that speech still.
Mm-hmm.
But people can also change their mind over time,
right,
and rework ideas. And it's really important that we leave space for that, because when we're having these conversations, me and you might not agree, but eventually you might think about what I said and be like, that hits different. And now I might do the same thing, or you say something, then I'm like, a year later, I'm like, oh my gosh, I finally see it now.
mm-hmm.
And that's fine.
And I think another thing too is like Martin Luther King's dream. I think there's a part in addition to that where he realized, because his dream is a little bit more complex than I think people even really understand about it, and the process in which that comes. And I think a big part of that was him almost viewing that process might not even be possible.
Right.
Because part of that process was for white people to repent and ask for forgiveness.
Yeah.
And to then do the work, right, that needed to be done. And I think there was a space where he realized that that's something that might not be possible.
Right. Because, like, the fact that he was even, like, where they don't want to also talk about the fact that he believed in reparations.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's not really forgiveness in a sense. Because I think he's more talking about it in, like, a spiritual way and, a religious way. But as well as, like, we have to have an actual forgiveness within ourselves. And we don't talk about the fact that he also believed in reparations within that, too.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many things that, I don't know, he's a very complex man, a very complex, but also, like, we needed him. And just like we needed Ella Baker, just like we needed Marcus Garvey, just like we needed Malcolm X, just like we needed W.E.B. Du Bois. You need all these people. You need James Baldwin, Asada. You need Fred. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It takes all these little pieces in order for us to actually be able to reach it. You know what I mean? It's almost kind of reminds me of like now I'm forgetting what it's called, the Tower of Babel. The Tower of Babel. Now I'm forgetting what it's called. I think it's the Tower of Babel, but it's a biblical story about how they're trying to build a tower up to heaven.
Mm-hmm.
And God ended up putting like everybody not being able to speak the same language. Yeah. I don't think maybe it's not called the Tower of Babel, but if you know the story, correct me in the comments, please. But I think that's like actually what we're going through right now, is that we're not all speaking the same language, and that's why we're not getting to where we need to when it comes to the abolition of these institutions, is because when you hear abolition, it kind of gets scary.
Mm-hmm.
It's a turn off. Turns off people's ears because it's a scary thought. But also when you start getting into it, it's actually the opposite of scary. There's a lot of care.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually a lot more care than there is in this current world within the creative space of abolition.
Yeah. And it's really big, and I think that can be scary too. But like you said, right, these little parts, like everybody has their own thing, right? For example, in the civil rights movement, they all aided in their own little ways. The same thing goes for abolition, because there's abolition in every space. And so you can pick the space that you might already be in, whatever that is, and find ways in which that you can put in an abolitionist perspective and like work and do those little things at a time.
To wrap up this third question that we were kind of answering with that conversation, what can we do to keep momentum going when facing major losses? She also described how they were able to, like, they weren't able to win every situation, but with persistence and consistency, they were able to, down the line, be able to make things work more in their favor and change more minds and get people talking about it more, which is like finding the positives too in our major losses, because we're going to have losses. This is going to be a constant struggle that we have to fight for the rest of our lives until we truly abolish these systems. And honestly, we have to accept it that it's probably not going to happen in our lifetime, but we can make major wins in our lifetime. And that's what we got to look forward to, and making sure that even when we do take these losses, that we find a win within them. Whether that's spreading the word, whether that's at least we got this county to stop, at least we got this county to stop, at least we could get this political figure on board, at least we could get people in this county to start thinking about it. Just
Right.
bringing awareness, because a lot of people don't even know what abolition is. That's just the reality. And so we have to really accept the wins that we do have, and show gratitude for those, because the major wins will also come too. I think that just makes sure that we're focused on the better things in the future. And I've been learning that in therapy personally. It's just like sometimes you got to look at the little things and make sure that you are appreciative of those little things and those little wins that we have. Like every single person that we can make sure that they are avoiding detention is valuable, So I just think that that's an important message to have in our back of your mind every time you are having the conversation of abolition, doing the actions of abolition, any of those things. Like it's going to be a constant struggle, but there's also going to be constant wins too, and we have to make sure our eyes are open to those things.
I think it's also like important to think about this, right? If your work, right, helps one or two people, should feel the same as it helping 10, 50, 100, right, plus people, because at the end of the day, right, you're still helping people, and that becomes worth it because two people will turn into that 10, 50, and 100, but it does take small moves and small steps, right, that you have to take, especially as something as big as abolition, because it is really big, right, in hindsight, and how many aspects go into it. And so that's why, right, when you can help people, right, in smaller ways, even in between those major losses, right, have that help you push through those things.
For all right. So moving into our first question that we did have is how can we support and create local leadership to stand against detention? And I guess we kind of did answer that question a little bit. Is like how can we as just local in our local communities, rally against this? It's taking part in every which way you can. That's truly what it is. And resistance can look in so many different ways. Like this year with my garden, I want to try and find a community of houseless people and feed them with the produce from my garden. And that is resistance. That is work of abolition in ways. It's just learning how to use your traits, your skills, and to go against the system and say, like, this isn't right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and help these people that are getting wronged. And this is how we do it. In whatever way, like as a gardener, what we could do is like, okay, so for these people, when we have to go rally, I'm gonna make some soup with the shit that I have, or I'm gonna make some tea with the shit that I grew. And or if you are a cook and you love cooking for people, that's a way to do it. You can help people out. If you have a little bit of extra money, or you have you work at a job where you get discounts at this place and you need to get waters, you need to get, stuff like that. Or if you need to get hand warmers, or you need to get like, if you have like resistance looks it takes so many different forms, and you can be a leader. It can be anybody being a leader. If you sit there and you tell your friends like, hey, let's go, and you bring this, you bring this, you bring this, we're all going to be ready. We're going to watch for each other. We're going to go help some people, make sure that they're safe as well while we go rally against this. Or and when we rally, it doesn't, and when I say rally, it doesn't have to even be necessarily protest. Like what we've said multiple times today is like, you needed the freedom riders. You needed the people that walked in Selma.
Mm-hmm.
You needed the people that walked with Malcolm. You needed the people who took the time to listen to Ella Baker.
Yeah, the people who fed children.
Yeah. You needed the children that were helping the children who were out there protesting with their homework.
To teach children. To all those things, right? All those different aspects that we seen in the movement, right? Whether it was walking across a bridge, taking those incredibly long walks, to helping ensure that our children are being taught properly, to ensuring that interstate buses were integrated, and ensuring that these children are being fed, and in all of these spaces, right? Sitting at lunch counters, drinking the water fountains you're not supposed to be drinking at, right? Like all these little things.
Carpooling when y'all were boycotting the bus.
Figuring out ways to get rides there, teaching people how to pass these voting tests, teaching, helping people learn how to read, and helping people learn how to write so that they can take those tests, and then they can take those tests and then they can go vote. Taking people to go vote.
Teaching people their rights. It takes so much work, and that's the beauty about abolition, and is that like a lot of people, like, we want to dismantle capitalism. That doesn't mean that there isn't jobs for people. That doesn't mean that there isn't positions for people to help out in society to help create a better world. That means that there's actually more. We want to create more of that. We need to create more of that. There's clearly a need in this world for that. So, that's how that's kind of just spreading the mentality locally to ensure that we can support our leadership that is taking these leaps of abolition. But that also means that we demand that our leadership is doing that as well. Like, we have to be blunt and talk to them give them how it is. There is no sugarcoating the fact that, okay, if you support this, this is what you're supporting. And I really like how Silky Shah brought up on page 178, she brought up a quote from One of the discussions they were having during the New York and New Jersey detention centers when they were trying to abolish the Hudson Center. And this woman said, if you vote to keep this contract, do not convince yourself that you are doing so in the best interest of the people detained by ICE at the Hudson County Jail. You will not be doing the right thing. You will not be the hero. And that's the reality that we have to speak to our officials with. Because, yeah, you're not doing us a favor by doing this. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, if they want to talk about, it brings it brings revenue to these communities. No, if anything, you're crippling these communities by making them economically dependent on these institutions that are inhumane. Mm-hmm. You are crippling these communities. And if we sit here and dismantle these things, and we get our leadership to dismantle these things, there will be economic growth. There will be so much more economic opportunity, because then that means there's more people to help now. So what are we doing? We have to hold them accountable. Mm-hmm. Hey, I stopped myself right there. If you know, you know. We got to hold them accountable. And when we do that, it takes real conversation. It takes a blunt comment. Like, I'm tired of seeing how people talk to Trump. No. Interrupt this man. Because we already know what he's going to say at this point. We know he's a deflector. So, press him. We need to start pressing these people. Mm-hmm. Freedom of speech. There's something. We need to start speaking like this, like how she did here, because especially with the rollback of voting rights. Because what has happened every single time is that eventually they need to. If we keep on getting in their face, they're gonna bow down because they realize the revenues are gonna be hit. So, yeah, they're affecting our voting rights. They're affecting our voting power. But you know what they're not affecting? Your volume. You got a voice. It's not affecting the amount of people we have. We got numbers. Their numbers are lower than ours, and they're going to keep on dwindling, actually. So, clearly the agenda is revenue. So we need to start, being pesty. Mm-hmm. We need to really get on their fucking nerves. It costs money. It takes money out of their budget to go and watch us while we protest. Because they want to make sure that everything stays in line. Fuck them. But guess what? That's money out of their revenue. Mm-hmm. And if they want to stop coming out there, they want to stop taking that money out of the budget. Well, then guess what? Follow our orders. That's all we're asking. Follow our demands. Continuing off this quote of 178. I'm sorry, I'm talking a bit much. Feel free to butt in after this, please. Disregarding the hours of testimony from 100 people against immigrant detention at Hudson, the commissioners voted to renew the ICE contract for another 10 years. In their explanation, they cited the potential loss of revenue from the contract cancellation, as well as the 2018 statement from NYIFUP, which convinced them they were helping people being detained at Hudson. So they want to talk about potential loss of revenue. Let's hit them in their pockets. Stop buying shit from people that you know are funding this. Start making them have some sleepless nights. They're going to be hearing us. That's what we need. We need to affect their pockets, period. Because that's what it's always coming down to. The fact that money is always the, end all be all.
Mm-hmm. I think in that case, right, like the biggest issue is revenue. Our local governments needing money, which I think in some cases, like, that's very much true. Our local governments in ways need money for things. But here's the kicker, is that we can actively be taking money out of things like detention centers and our police and our prisons and things of that nature, and actively giving them to spaces within our local government that need them.
Mm-hmm.
Like our mental health resources, like our housing resources, like all of those things, right? Instead of having them get them from these detention centers. There are places where you can pull from.
Mm-hmm.
It's pulling from them specifically, not in a way that keeps them there, but taking them away. Take away ICE's money. Just put them in the local governments to where that they can use them to just benefit the people. That's where we're gonna get some actual movement. I think another thing about leadership, as well as just like, nobody's coming to save you. No leader's gonna like be Jesus and rise up.
Yeah.
and tell you to follow them. That's not happening. So like, you got to do it yourself in your own way, however that seems fit. There are small things, there are big things that you can do. You can create whole organizations, or you can just start speaking up on your social media. You can educate yourself, right? Which is what we're trying to aid in doing as well, is educating you guys so that you have the knowledge and equipment to actually go out there and do something. Mm-hmm. And it can be as little as that. Art is really important. You're an artist. Your art aids in helping in so many ways, right? Mm-hmm. And so, like, you just need to do something. It doesn't have to be big. It can be small, as talking with your family members, and talking with your coworkers, things of that nature, right? But nobody's coming to save you, clearly.
No. And we have to start, like, putting in, like, the work within our community so we can, us as a community, us as a people, save ourselves, because that's what it's going to take. Because at the end of the day, it's just the way we have been able to, we kind of answered this question. The way we've been able to sit here and excuse the inhumanity of the policies that our local government are accepting, that's where it's like, we have to start holding them accountable. Mm-hmm. And that starts with, like, educating our people. Be like, hey, did you know? Like, one of my personal favorite things to do, because I think that it opens people's minds up to the actual reality of America, is to tell people, hey, do you know that slavery is still legal? And it throws people off. And then you guys explain to them, like, yeah, look up the 13th Amendment. The word accept is on that 13th Amendment. So now so we have to start, like, genuinely spreading this knowledge in different ways. Get comfortable with this information, and accepting it too. Because, there is, like, a little bit of a grief that you have when you realize, like, oh, the system's really meant to fold in on itself.
I'd argue with that. You shouldn't accept it. Don't accept the information that's coming to you in a way that is... Because sometimes when we accept something, it's like, this is the way that it is. That's what it is. don't accept it, want to change it because the information that you're getting is wrong. It is wrong that when they abolished slavery that they were like, actually, we're not going to do it entirely. And here's what we're going to do.
Right.
We're going to put this little loophole. We shouldn't accept that. That should not be an acceptable thing.
I think what I mean by accepting it is like, in a way, it's like when you're in an abusive relationship, you have to accept that you're in an abusive relationship first in order for you to know that, like, you have to get out of it. Like, you have to even acknowledge the fact that this is an abusive relationship. And maybe accepting isn't the right word. I think acknowledging the facts. That's the better word. Acknowledge the facts. Acknowledge the information. Acknowledge that we live in a capitalistic, enslaving, terroristic country. Like, all the worst things that you could be as a country, known as a country, we are sadly those things. It's like, it's really bad. We have a terrible history, and we're creating new terrible acts every day. We're aiding in new terrible acts every day. And the reason why is because we have not abolished the system from the roots. We have not gotten to the root of the issue. And it's just this, like, there's 2 points in this chapter where it's like, how do we accept this? And this is where we have to, like, these facts are things that we have to acknowledge, and now we need to go to our leadership and demand different from them. But this is the information from page 148. But for 24 years, Etowah was one of the worst immigrant detention centers in the United States, and it came to symbolize everything wrong with the system. People detained there were routinely denied medical care or told to just drink water and take an ibuprofen for any ailment. They were also regularly served moldy and rotten food. An investigation in 2018 revealed that the sheriff had pocketed $7,500,000 allocated for food provision at the jail, and had bought a beach house that cost a near equivalent amount. Most immigrants detained at Etowah were transferred from other states to await an appeal on their case. With no outdoor recreation space, they would spend months or years in the jail without ever stepping foot outside. And when these people who were detained here or in detention here, when they would protest, they would be put in solitary confinement for these clearly inhumane things. The fact that they weren't even able to get outside should be enough for you to be questioning the humanity of this. Like, do you know, like, you need vitamin D. You need to see the sun. Like, you need it. It's, like, part for your health. And not only for, like, a psychologically, too. Just needing to be able to see different spaces. And we allow these things to be in our county jails. And if people tell you or act like this isn't possible to abolish it, at least in your state, abolish the detainment of, maybe not abolish, but ban the detainment of immigrants in your state. If they act like it's impossible, tell them, fuck you, it is possible. Because we have plenty of examples that we talked about in this book. Illinois being one of them. So them saying, no, we can't do it. Yes, we can. You're just choosing to be lazy. You're choosing profits over people. And if you support that, then you're a weirdo. goofy, and we don't accept you. We're not accepting that. We're not accepting you as a leader anymore. Get out. Goodbye. Good riddance. That is how we need to be speaking to them, because there is no other way to move about this. It is what this is. And we can't act like we don't see history repeat itself constantly.
Yeah.
We continue to repeat history. Like on page 180, I really just liked this quote from one of the signs at the San Quentin State Prison in California, because they were protesting. No, they're protesting outside of Dilley, which was a place where they incarcerated Asian Americans during the internment camps during World War II. It's just a sad reality of how history repeats itself, and like people having to protest immigrant detention outside of where we did detention against our Asian American community. And if I'm not mistaken, it definitely was not just Asian or Japanese Americans. It was all American or Asian Americans, because when does America really like to truly be so picky when it comes to like real ethnicity, besides when it comes to white folks? You know, like the Irish and the Italians, yeah, they were segregated against. But when it comes to people of color, they just like to draw a very wide brush. So when we look at that, we're still fighting those same battles today. There was a person who was born in that internment camp. There's a person who was born in that internment camp, and then is still protesting to this day outside of it, because just because they decided to go for a different community, that makes it okay. And even then, some of that community is still getting put in detention centers. Like, we have to look at this at face value. That is face value. Is that though we can sit here and we said we even paid reparations to some of them because we know it was the wrong thing to do. And now because we make it sound a little different, give it a little bit of different initials that makes it right. It's the same fight over and over and over again. Our civil rights activists who fought for us to have the rights, the voting rights that we had, are actively seeing them get taken away. We need to start reading the history books. We need to start actively arming ourselves with knowledge of how this system... We need to start arming ourselves with the knowledge of how this system continues to repeat itself. Just because it gives it a different name doesn't take away from the fact that it's doing these evil acts. These are evil acts. Immigration detention, make that make sense. Those two words. When you just say them, they don't feel a little funky to you? Sit with that. Think about that. Like, why is that even and like going off of that, a quote from this, and if you have anything to say after this, please just pop in. From page 161, coming from Sadsuki Ina, wrote an op-ed for Time about the rebranding attempt. No matter what it's called, a cage is still a cage. I know this firsthand. In 1945, the U.S. government published a propaganda film about Crystal City internment camp, where I was held, touting the flower gardens, medical staffing, and daily milk deliveries to this family prison. The film cited these as a sign of the normal living conditions inside the fence. But despite these superficial necessities, I knew that I lived in a prison and that the job of the armed guards in the watchtowers was to prevent my escape. That's 1945. What's different about it in 2026? 1945. If we're still repeating things from 1945, I think we need to check ourselves. I think we need to really check ourselves. And we like to act like we're really the good guys in 1945. But we didn't step in because, oh, there's a Holocaust happening. We stepped in because Japan attacked us on our land, on Hawaii. They attacked Hawaii. And I don't even know if that was actually a state at the time.
I don't think that was necessarily the reason why we got in. We were forced our hand, but I don't think Japan specifically forced our hand.
Yeah, they did. They bombed Pearl Harbor. They bombed Pearl Harbor, and Japan was part.
I thought Mexico forced our hand.
That's World War One.
Oh.
You're thinking of the German and Mexican telegraph that got picked up, and low key, there's still things within that. We clearly aren't willing to take the high ground and always go for these things because it's the moral thing. We usually have we have other agendas behind it, because if you also want to look into that, before the Pearl Harbor, which is the real reason why Japan probably attacked us in the first place, is because we had an oil embargo on them we had an oil embargo on Japan between China. We stopped them from receiving oil. Same issue that you see today out in, Iran.
Mm-hmm.
Like, repeating the same issues from 1945. 1940s weren't pretty, so why are we repeating them? I don't know. Y'all answer that yourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything else that you want to add on for these questions?
No, not really.
All right. Well, we appreciate y'all for tuning in on this episode, on our second to last episode of Unbuild Walls. I really appreciated this chapter. I really enjoyed this chapter. I felt like it was a light at the end of the tunnel,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I feel like the biggest thing. Oh, here's one more fact I feel like we need to say on record. This is from page 171, and if this isn't clear to you, how evil, ass backwards, profit driven situation, like these policies that we accept, are what our leaders are willing to accept, and I don't know, but this is a perfect example of it. By the time the plans became public in 2019, they had already drafted agreements. All they needed was a vote by the village board. ICA had promised Dwight $1 for each person detained, and the potential revenue was a major draw for the mayor and the town. At one point, ICIRR and others tried to organize a town hall with local church in Dwight, but under community pressure, the church canceled the event at the last minute. Now, you're telling me you're going to incentivize a mayor to get $1 per detainee that you have in their county or their town? Yes, you're obviously, like, You are incentivizing these people to detain people. Like, this is disgusting. This is disgusting. You are incentivized. That's like you're incentivizing to help the villains. That's it. Point blank, period. You're not doing good. You're not doing something that's good. Sorry to break it to you. And all those Democrats, that if you support the Democrats that do it, remember that you're not doing good. Don't call yourself the hero. Don't act like you actually care about people. Don't act like you actually care about people when you're able to ignore that inhumanity. Inhumanity is inhumanity. Obama sucked ass as a fucking president because of the inhumanities that he fucking caused on our immigrant community. Point blank, period. Is he as bad as Trump? No. Is he bad? Yes. That's like equivalent to being like, oh yeah, there were good slave owners and there's bad slave owners. You were a slave owner. Bad. Inhumane. Inhumane, that's it. Leave it at that. There's no reason to give a little extra to it. You giving extra to it is giving excuses. And why are we trying to excuse this behavior? Why are we excusing this inhumane behavior? Fuck them niggas. Fuck the Dems. Fuck the Republicans. Them niggas all need to get their shit together or get out the way. We need to make a list, truly make a list of all the leadership that has decided to aid in the detention of our people because it is wrong. We are not animals. We are humans. And why do humans need to be in cages? Well, we appreciate y'all for coming in and tuning in of this episode of Off the Shelf Book Club. We appreciate y'all. Make sure you like, share, follow, subscribe. Share it with your friends, family, community members. We all need to do this knowledge. This revolution does take work. It takes a community. It takes each and every one of us. It takes each and every one of us to do whatever little thing that we can do. So we appreciate all of you that take the time to read, to do the knowledge, to do the education. And to all of you that are doing it, peace be with you. Hope you have a peace of mind, a great rest of your week, great health and wealth. Ashe.
Ashe.
I write it for people, baby.
To truly choose to love is heroic.
Everything would be all right if everything was put back in the hands of the people. And we're going to have to put it back in the hands of the people.